Hi there, and welcome back to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. I'm Ryan Byrd, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick. Very special guest this week as we continue to bring you the best coaches from Division I, II, and III on both the men's and women's side. Welcoming Jordan Byrd, the head coach of Clemson. So, Coach, I'll start with you. Obviously, a longtime assistant at Clemson. Take over a program that has so much history. In fact, as you kind of watch the PGA Tour leaderboards in the last couple of years, a lot of your younger players really from Clemson starting to leave their mark on professional golf as well. Just kind of encapsulate how this journey at Clemson has been for you.
So you're right. Thanks for having me on, Ryan. I've been here at Clemson now for 19 years. I was assistant for Coach Benley for 15. This is my fourth year as the head coach at Clemson. And you mentioned some of the young guys that are having an impact on the PGA Tour right now. Jacob Bridgman just displayed outstanding this year. Finished PGA Tour U and Clemson in 2022. Went out and got his card through Korn Ferry immediately. Full exempt this year. Played great. I think he finished about 110 on the FedEx Cup. But did some really cool stuff out there. I think he had the fourth best stroke average. I think he was about third in birdies or fourth in birdies, like sixth in putting. So he did some really good stuff. He didn't get to play as many tournaments. Well, he played 28 events, but when you don't play in some of those elite events, it gets hard to kind of move up that FedEx Cup quite a bit. But yeah, Carson Young's played great. Lucas Glover continues to play well. Ben Martin. So we've had a good run of players getting out there. And then we got a big day today. Today's final round of second stage of Q School. We got three guys that got a chance. They're going to need, one of them's in fourth, and two of them are going to need to have great days. But got a chance to add to the number of guys out there on the big tour.
Coach, with that being said, I mean, tremendous success at Clemson and the history there. And you've been an integral part of that for many years in the recruiting process. You're renowned out there in the coaching world of being a great recruiter. What's the secret?
Well, I'm not sure if I figured out the secret, but I think it's just getting out and doing, working hard, getting out and watching the kids play. We're blessed in South Carolina that there's so many good junior golfers. This State Golf Association does an amazing job. The Carolinas Golf Association does an amazing job. So we're in a geographical location where I think you're going to see more great players in your region. But we have had to branch out last few years, and we've been able to branch out. And we've got a player from South Africa, a kid from Ireland. I got a kid from Sweden right now on the team. So we've branched out and tried to find some of the international talent. And some of that, like you said, is based on Coach Benley's success, our former players' success, and that certainly helps is having this prior success.
Yeah, certainly NIL is massively changing sports beyond even comprehension. Signing day for football, and certainly what Dabo has done at Clemson, really obviously making Clemson a worldwide known university. How about this for you, Roger and Coach? There was not one five-star recruit in the country that didn't go to an SEC or Big Ten school. Now, just let that sink in for a minute. And obviously, it's because those two conferences financially are in a completely different hemisphere than every other school. Now, when it comes to golf, obviously, it doesn't impact it like it does football and college basketball. But have you seen a trickle-down, Coach, that, those two conferences, because of the television deal they have, because of football, that it is a different game?
It's making its way into college golf, and has last couple of years. It's really only affecting those elite players, but it is certainly having an impact. Yeah. I know those two conferences spend quite a bit of money on some of their football teams and basketball teams, and you're seeing it cross over into basketball too, where the ACC was clearly the best conference, and right now we're down a little bit. But thankfully here at Clemson, we've got a great one in Coach Brad Brownell, and he's doing an awesome job. So we got a really good basketball team and basketball program right now.
Coach, there's rumor, and obviously there's speculation and there's discussion happening with the NCAA with roster spots changing for next year. You've got what, 10 players on the team, or give or take. How's that going to impact your program and your recruiting process when it comes to what NIL is going to be, what it is going to do for ACC and different conferences and the best players out there? How's it going to impact you guys?
Well, from my understanding, and I think we're getting some real clarity on this now, with the House case kind of basically being passed, we're going to have at Clemson 9 roster spots, and we're going to be working our way to get 9 scholarships. So we're kind of asked to help fundraise for that a little bit, but I think in the next couple of years we'll get to 9 full scholarships. So that side of the House case is really going to help us, going from 4.5 scholarships to 9. Now, as you know, golf is just an expensive sport. So the guys play a lot of summer tournaments. They'll go get additional lessons. So it is expensive. So I'm pretty excited that we're going to be able to provide extra financial aid for these kids. So that part's going to be great. My understanding on the NIL front is this really changes come July 1st. Mm-hmm. Collectives will be less involved. Every NIL deal you sign will have to be fair market value. So that deal will have to pass through an outside agency outside the NCAA. It's going to have to pass through another law firm. They rubber stamp and say this is fair market value. So some of the numbers we've heard other players getting, I just don't think they're going to happen anymore, because putting out 2 tweets and getting $100,000 or whatever that number is, it is not fair market value. So hopefully this they put some guardrails on this, and that only gets better from here. But it's been very challenging.
Yeah, has that impacted your recruiting process, if you will, and looking? It seems to. Ryan and I, every week we hear from so many different coaches, and we hear from a lot of parents and young athletes, their market value, right? Because they've got a following, they have this, they're going to ask for this when they get recruited. Is this something you're seeing why coaches and schools are reaching outside of the domestic U.S. and saying, hey, we can find as many good players elsewhere in the world? They're not asking for the world and not being treated in a way that is their royalty, if you will, or already PGA Tour players?
I think we're just trying to find the best players. And that may be here in the U.S., maybe abroad. I think there's great talent everywhere right now. So we're trying to find the best talent we can. Daniel Castles, my assistant, has done an awesome job this summer. We recruited a couple of players that were outside the U.S., and they were still requesting that NIL part of their scholarship. So it's not just the U.S. players that are looking for it. It kind of just depends on their ranking and how well they've played. So yeah, but you're right. Like from a scholarship standpoint, when we're going to have 9 next year, we're trying to make decisions on 26s. We'll get out watching 27s here pretty soon, and thinking through that roster number is going to limit the number of guys you can take that maybe you really want to take a chance on, who has some part of their game that you believe could be truly elite at some point. And now it's going to be hard to take a chance on those guys because you're just limited.
That's really interesting. And, the reality is most people we talk to believe that the level of junior golf around the world right now is the best it's ever been, ever.
It is in 18 years I've done this. I would agree.
Yeah. I mean, and you really only have to look at kind of go to the highest level, PGA Tour, right? And you may say that it's coincidental. I don't think these kind of numbers make it coincidental, but if you take Dunlap, you take Clanton, you take Oberg, you take, you just go through since PGA Tour U has really brought the college game to a different level. I mean, these guys aren't fighting for their cards. They're fighting to be the best player in the world at 20, 21 years old. Go steps further. I know you can't really talk about the Miles Russells of the world, but you're talking about 14 and 15-year-old kids that are making the cuts. Like, what is the biggest difference when you started from a junior golf standpoint to where the best players are now? What is this improvement, this confidence, this length? Where does it all come from? What do you think it stems from?
Well, I'm not sure there's one thing you can put a finger on. I think it's just the accumulation of everything. Where it's, we're getting better athletes. They're bigger, they're stronger, faster. They're taught to swing with speed at a younger age or try to chase speed. Maybe the biggest one is just the opportunities that are allowed to them now, where it's not just junior golf, where they're, when I was growing up, you basically stayed in your region. Now the kids travel significantly more. So that makes them more, more comfortable when they travel, more comfortable on bent grass, Bermuda, elevation, different conditions. They're playing the AJGA Tour, they're playing PGA Tour caliber golf courses that teach you something about your golf game. So I think this accumulation, and then you get to college, and I think the college coaches are doing an unbelievable job. One, whether it's instruction, I think we're all getting better. We're trying to get certified and everything we can, try to provide the best instruction we can. We have incredible resources where we have sports psychologists, we have nutritionists, we have strength coaches that are more dedicated to golf now and not just powerlifting. So they're getting great training in school. We're allowed, based on like our football program. Thankfully, Coach Sweeney and Clemson have a great football program that allows me and our team to travel all over the country. We get to go to, whether it's going out to Hawaii at the beginning of the year, we get to go out west. We get to place our team and our players in environments that I think just exponentially help their growth. So then when they do get a chance to go play a PGA Tour event, they may have played the golf course before in a junior event or a college event, so they're more comfortable. They see alumni at that event that can kind of look out for them. Their instructor might be there because they are working with elite instructors. I think it's just everything just helps them be way more comfortable in that environment. And they're provided opportunities that the kids weren't provided. Getting into PGA Tour events now. I think that may be one thing the PGA Tour you didn't think through or didn't understand, where how many college players were going to get access to PGA Tour events, that it's allowed more kids to get through quicker or have the chance to get through because they're getting in PGA Tour events. So they have a chance to make the cut and get more points and move up the ladder.
Yeah, Coach, as you were just talking about that, just reflecting a little bit about, what we're seeing at the junior level, NB3 national championship. I mean, the players that have come through there now and watching that field continually get deeper and deeper at the younger ages, it's pretty amazing. And one of the things that we do is we have a PDI skills assessment. Actually, we just were at Clemson for the women's team, and we started recognizing a couple little things I thought was very interesting, which is between the best women's programs and not some of the top women's programs, there's not a lot of difference in some of the categories. But what we noticed was those little things, as you were just talking about, it's not one big thing, it's a lot of little things. And going through some of the data that we just accumulated it was 10 seconds difference in holding a glute bridge that made a player actually have a better short game. So we saw that in 150 different players, what that divide was. And it was so incremental, but yet it made a difference about 2.5 shots per player per round for a team, which is pretty darn significant when you think about you're only separating from missing a shot or two, right? It's almost half a shot here or there. And I know that's kind of what you're talking about in providing that type of an environment at a Clemson, like, you guys program, saying, hey, how are we going to make sure that our players are just getting incrementally better around, all of their skill sets and not just a couple of their skill sets. And it's a very fine line between, what that is. On a day-to-day basis, can you give us a little insight of what you guys are doing to help your players be their best?
Yeah, glad to. So at Clemson, our practice facility is on campus, which I think helps us be really efficient with our time. they can come back practice whenever they want. So they can come back at night, they can come back early in the morning. We've got bent grass, we got a Bermuda grass green, so it allows them to do some putt in some different environments. We have all the technology there with TrackMan, with Quad, with Putt View, with Sam Putt Lab, with Gas. I like the technology, so I like to be able to have access to that if need be. You also started using Sportsbox AI, but we're trying to put the guys through different assessments like you are. So we're doing, some physical assessments, whether it be a FMS or a TPI screen. From a physical side, we use Decade. We kind of use some at with Birdie Fire. Oh no, excuse me. The Clipped. So we've used Clipped and Decade this year. To some of the guys like one better than the other. So we're trying to use those systems to provide the areas we think they need to do some work on. And then our job as coaches is to come up with a plan. So if we determine that, somebody's short game is lacking, we're going to try to put together like an assessment to see what shots they struggle with. And if there's certain shots they struggle with, usually there's a technique involved where they may not understand how to use the ground as well, may not know how to use the bounce as well. Maybe we need to work on spinning a little more, whatever it is, or may just not know the conditions. Right now we have ryegrass in our facility. It's usually a little wet. It's getting between the face. It's not spinning as much, but they need to know that shot's just not going to spin. So we need to stop it with loft or, this firm sand or soft sand. There's a little different technique. So we're trying to always, like you're doing, is try to build some type of assessment that gives us kind of a baseline, tells us where we need to work, and then it's our job to put together a plan. Say this is how we're going to approach this area of your game, and this is how we're going to improve it. And there may be an area where we can't figure it out. And luckily at Clemson, a lot of these other great schools, we have access to alumni and teachers, and we've gotten to know those instructors. And you can call these guys, and they've been really, really willing to help. And maybe there's something we're missing. So trying to put together an assessment, try to figure out where they need to work, and then build a plan to help them get better. And like I said, incrementally better. Let's just try to get 1% better today, and by the end of the year, we're going to be a great team.
Ryan, I think you're on mute.
The hardest part for every college coach in every sport is evaluating a teenager and then making a prediction on what that teenager is going to become as they hit 20, 21, 22, with all the resources you have, with the PDIs, with all the technology. How is all of that going to take this 16, 17, 18-year-old that I'm recruiting and I'm betting on? Remember, college coaches are paid for wins and losses most times. So you're not only betting on a kid, but you're betting on that you are right on that. I want to go a different direction there, Coach, and ask you, on your misses, and every coach has them, where you offer a kid a scholarship, and then they get there and it just doesn't work out. The 4 years come and they go, and that player just never became that, never really made your five on a consistent basis, and just never became the player that you would hope that they were. Is on a lot of those misses, with your experience, is there something that once they get there that has helped you look for in juniors that we can try to identify something that is coming down the line?
Meaning, like, is there something that would help me identify, a greater success rate? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
I think what I try to do is I try to look back at the qualities of the players that have had a lot of success at Clemson. And then I try to figure out, how do we recruit those? And then how do you recruit the kids that fits you as a coach? I think I've learned that I like the kids that are a little more organized, a little more detail oriented. We always want the kids that, just have really high aspirations of playing professional golf or playing at the highest levels. But one of the main things I think I've noticed is we've had some guys that just have been able to separate the outcome of the prior shot and just be able to move on. Like my best example may be Turk Pettit, who won the NCAAs in 21, and he's got second stage Q school today. He's going to need a great day, but he played high school quarterback, and he would basically make the pass, and then you're turning to the sideline and you're asking for the next play. And he had this just amazing ability to just disassociate whatever the outcome of the prior shot was and move on to the next. Doc Redmond, he'd hit a bad shot and he'd just be like, whatever. And he would just disregard it and move on to the next. Jacob Bridgman, same thing. Like I walked with him a lot and walked with Doc a lot, and they hit some just atrocious shots and they just didn't bother. And that was something I always, and maybe it's just for me and for my game, like that would have been an incredible skill for me to have had.
I love that.
Him have it, and just to be able to dissociate that has really helped their games, I think. And it's allowed.
And Roger, we see it. I mean, we see it. We, for better or for worse, we're all a work in progress. But we've seen kids in the lead hit a bad shot and actual tears crying on the golf course in the middle of a round that they're leading because they hit a bad shot. And once that happens, it's over.
It's over. Unfortunately, Ryan, I think when we see that, it's not so much it's the kid. They're looking to the sideline, as Coach Byrd just said. They're looking for their parent disapproval or approval. Unfortunately, and they don't really have that ownership of what's going on. But Coach Byrd, I mean, going back to that, I mean, to me, you have these Doc Redmonds, you have these great players. Obviously, you're talented and a great player in your own right as an amateur player. You learned obviously something, and somehow you learned to disassociate. But was it because you had confidence in your skills or your abilities to hit the next shot, or was it you just had confidence because you were an athlete? I mean, you were a wrestler in high school, you're weight division champion, those kind of things. So you obviously had some, confidence somewhere.
Yeah, I think your confidence comes from your preparation. So, so I think that just helps you. That helps you allow you to kind of move on from that next shot and just know that it's an anomaly because I've put forth the effort, I've put forth the hours in hitting so many great shots. Just because I've hit one bad one, it allows you to move on. So I think it always comes back to your preparation. And if you've been able to prepare in that environment or to prepare, to try to put some stress on you, put some pressure on you, and be able to, remember some of those prior successes helps you to move on faster. So I think a lot of it just depends on how good your preparation is.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, you hear all the time, again, back to the junior golfers, the unfortunate thing, and it's going to sound like I'm bashing parents. I'm not here. It's just a reality, is that they mark those bad shots so much more than the good shots, right? Meaning that when a kid hits a bad shot, the parents going, why'd you hit that shot? How'd you do that? How could that happen? Versus they hit a good shot and they're going, well, you're expected to hit that shot. Even though they're a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid, to your point, the experiences at all different levels, they haven't even had that experience yet, but yet a parent is saying they're expected to hit these great shots. And so they mark those bad shots way more than they mark the good shots. And I think if you probably go back and think about your development or your players that you have there, they've probably played other sports. They probably have gone and played golf, dropped off the golf course and experienced golf on their own and messed around with their friends, not having a parent over their shoulder going, well, you got to do it this way, or you got to hit this, or if you don't hit this shot, you're terrible, or do it differently. Yeah,
I think those parents have great intentions. But many times it'd be great just to remind them, let's be a parent first. Instead of a coach second, or a coach first. But, I think as coaches, we have to remember to do the same thing. I think it's something I kind of struggle with as a coach is I really want to do well. I think I'm as competitive as they are, if not more. But it's something I got to remind myself too, is that we have to put a greater emphasis on the number of good shots. So one of the things we do at Clemson is each one of the guys has an orange notebook, just like this. And they're expected to write their 3 best shots in that book after every qualifying round and after every tournament round. And the idea is just that they're building this category of great shots.
Mhm.
So at some point in the year, maybe it's the week before ACCs, they go back and look in their book and they remember these hundreds of great shots they've hit throughout the year. So there's a vivid written out explanation or the surroundings or what club, what the trajectory was, that hopefully it kind of triggers a memory that brings them back to a specific time. And it's a great memory. Because I think our brain works to where we remember the negative shots. We remember the poor shots so much more than the great shots.
Yeah.
That you have to put something in place for them to really make an effort to try to remember this.
Yeah.
One of our guys, Ben Martin, and he and his caddy at dinner, they're buddies. They're really close. But at dinner, you can talk about the 3 best shots a day, and that's it. No more golf. Can't talk about like bad decisions, bad shots. It's your 3 best shots, and that's it. It's just a kind of a guardrail for them to. This is the only thing we're going to discuss tonight about golf. So
I
I think
love
you
that.
got to try to put those things in place.
Ryan, I don't know. I don't know if we've been talking about our 3 best shots.
Hey, Roger, what if you don't have 3 best?
Yeah, I don't know. I can remember one best shot. I mean, I will tell a little funny story. Is that I do, to your point, Coach, is like I was on a PGA Tour qualifier, a Monday qualifier, many years ago, and I remember this distinctly. This one 4-iron shot I hit from about 210, and it ended about a foot from the hole. And I recall that shot almost every round of golf I play of going. I remember exactly what that felt like and the visualization. So it is very powerful. And that was 20, almost 30 years ago, right?
Yeah, your job's to go create that with all 14 clubs in your bag.
That's right. Yeah.
Draws and fades, and
Just
gives you a better memory for those great shots.
The brain is obviously it's such a tricky thing, and it involves golf. I mean, everyone will tell you that it's, golf is so much between the ears, and we all understand that. I want to get into the recruiting process for you as this game has become more distance driven. Do you find yourself recruiting golfer score over score golfer athlete, or is it a case by case?
Good question. And I think with these limits, some of those athletes that you really, really want to take a chance on, those may be a little more difficult to come by. So I think you're going to look for the scores first and the results. But you still got to fit your team culture. There's just so much more to it than just their scores. So I think it's more score now than athlete, but then you look back at the best players that we've had, and many of them have been great athletes.
Yeah.
So, and what I think I've found is those kids like Turk and Jacob, who played all these other sports, once they kind of dedicated to one, their growth in college just seems to go really quickly, and they get better quickly. And then they've also been in a team environment. Too many of the kids are playing by themselves or practicing by themselves or traveling by themselves or just their parents. And then you put them in a bus with, 5 guys and a couple coaches, and it's a little different for them. They're used to playing 2 practice rounds. They're used to hitting a bunch of extra shots. And now you move into a team environment, and you don't have to do the same thing, but it's got to be within the team framework. Same thing in the gym. They're used to doing one way, and we're going to try to build a workout for each player. But you still got to do it within this team. So I think the athletes, or that acclimation period, it's just much faster for the athletes because they've been around large groups of guys, been in the bus with everybody, and they understand the team dynamic.
Yeah, Coach, on that same note, it's one of the things that we talk about a lot at the Golf Performance Academy, and Ryan and I and Noda, we talk about, that recruiting process for young athletes. And you see in so many other sports, from baseball, you're a 5-tool player, or in all other sports, it's like you're a 5-star, right? But in golf, there is really not a lot of that, right? To your point, you're trying to find the athlete, you ask questions, but you don't really know measurably what they are as an athlete, and it is why I created the PDI, the Player Development Index, was to look a little bit deeper than, okay, you have a score, great, you have a ranking, okay, but to your point of knowing the athlete a little bit more is knowing what kind of physical skills, mental skills. I was a quarterback, recruited, taking the Wonderlic test, understanding kind of the game situations, to my physical attributes, my golf skills, all of those are considered into, what a PDI score is, but then that makes a 5-star recruit, or it makes a 5-tool player. Is that something you think would be good for the game of golf, or a college coach, or a recruiting process?
I do, because you're basically putting some of the ideas into a framework, right? Like,
Right.
I do think you need to be, maybe not elite's the right word, but you need to be great at something in part of your game, and then we can help kind of build around it. Whether they're a great driver of the ball, I think golf gets really easy if you're in the fairway at 300 yards most of the time. So, like, it's just hard to mess it up when you drive it really, really well. So we do try to put an emphasis on driving. But if somebody has an elite short game, elite putting game, wedge game, like, I think you can kind of come up with some areas where maybe more important than others, using PGA Tour, like correlation of money made, or, maybe the best players in the world. But I think you have to do something really, really well. And that could be their mental game too. Like, we do have a freshman that I think that's his greatest strength, is he is totally committed when he's on the golf course. Like, he looks pretty good on the range or at home, but then once you show up at the tournament, he's a better golfer when you put that scorecard in his pocket. And if I could figure out how to recruit that, then we're going to have a great program. But, like, that's what I see out of him. And I think he's been through some tough things in his life that's made him a little tougher. But just that grit and toughness and just the commitment on the golf course, that's a big one too. And that one's hard to identify. And that's where I was saying earlier, you got to get out and watch. You got to watch them play poorly and see how they handle themselves, see how they treat others, like, see if they can grind out a 72 when they just don't have it. But you're right. Like, if we can figure out who the great players are and what their great attributes are, I think, like, it helps a college coach figure out where I can just add to that. If I can just get them a little bit better everywhere else, then I got somebody who can be great, because they need to be able to pick up strokes somewhere against the field. And whatever that is, you're still picking up strokes.
Well, hopefully, are you going to be at the college coaches convention this year?
I think so. I've injured my back about a week ago, and I am really uncomfortable right now. So I'm a little worried about getting on the plane.
Yeah.
Went to see a doctor yesterday. I got some prednisone, and I'm really hoping it starts working. But I am worried about getting on that plane come Monday. But
I bet.
my plan is to be there.
Yeah, good. Well, hopefully, if you're there, we've got some really interesting kind of data that we're going to show about the PDI, and to some of your points there, which is, how do you understand the mental side of things? And, from a mental skills inventory, we've actually created I don't want to say we cracked the code, but we certainly got some really interesting data to show that we're, those players who are taking the mental skills inventory are starting to show, like, here are attributes that really are contributing to their successes, right? And whether that's a big success across the board or smaller successes that make that difference, right? So it's really cool to see. So hopefully we can show you that one.
Yeah,
Coach, last thing, and we'll let you go real quick. And sorry about your.
Ryan, I think you're on mute again.
Roger?
Yep, there you go.
Yeah. The junior golfer that wants to go to Clemson, Coach, how does that process start for you? Do you like the junior player to email you before that June 15th of their sophomore year, just to try to get on your radar, show you what your scores are, show the tournaments they're playing? Or is Clemson beyond that, because it is such a powerhouse ACC school that if you were looking at emails, there'd be too many? What is your, from let's say, June of your freshman year until June of your junior year, what approach do you like a junior golfer to take towards you?
Yeah, we do get a ton of emails. So, but I don't mind that. I mean, those are kids that are taking a proactive step in their recruiting process. They have a desire to play college golf, so that doesn't bother me at all. The information that I would like to see from them is kind of their tournament history. what tournaments they have coming up. So I know that if I'm out watching at that event, I can stop by on the range. I can watch them hit a few shots. And it really doesn't matter what age. It's more putting a face with a name. But it may be that freshman that sent you something was like, hey, I remember that kid's name. He's played pretty good. Let's go watch him hit 10 shots. And then we're usually recruiting the older kids at that point. But that doesn't mean we're trying to keep an eye on who the best, 28s, 29s are, 27s are right now. So, and then who the contact information is, who are their instructors, who are they working with, high school coach, because we can contact them to kind of get a feel for their desire to play at the highest levels, what type of person they are, their character. And then just kind of brief academics. We need to know they're a good student. As much as classes we miss, if two kids average the same thing, we're taking the better student every time. Just because we miss probably 14 days in the fall, about 14 in the spring. It's a lot. So you need to be a good student. Now that we're going to be able to hopefully have 9 scholarships, the academic piece, and be able to kind of add an academic scholarship and athletic scholarship, maybe that won't matter as much, but it doesn't change. We want great students. Again, if you go back and look at the successful players that we've had at Clemson that have made it, they've all been good students. Every single one of them. Now, there are a couple of them that, that just kind of did their minimum, but we knew that's what they were going to do because they wanted to play professional golf, but they were still good students. So it's definitely a part of it. But we need to know kind of whatever the terms they have coming up, and then contact information.
Awesome. Well, best of luck. Certainly, you've built a powerhouse, and it's one. Playing so well in professional golf. Good luck with that back, and we'll hope to see you real soon.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you guys in Vegas.
All right. Good luck, Coach. Hope your back gets better.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Well, Roger, another one. That was interesting. A lot of levels, a lot of changes. Thing that caught me, and we'll see how that goes. But Clemson, one of those schools that is going to fully fund 9 scholarships. So, they just went from 4.5 to 9. Like, that's really good for the junior golfer, because every parent loves to hear that. I just, you hear the horror stories of, well, you're getting 10% because they've got 10 kids that are all getting 10%. You get schools like Clemson funding the full scholarship. That's really good news for the junior golfer.
Oh, it's great news. I mean, now it is competitive. So to get one of those 9 full scholarships, you've got to be one of the 9 best players in the world. So those parents need to understand that, and the players obviously understand that for sure. And I think for a school like that, I mean, it does help when you have that kind of funding behind you to be able to go out and find those players wherever they are in the world, right? Which to Coach Byrd's comments, it's an international game. It's just good players everywhere.
I've heard there are a lot of private schools with some really great NCAA golf history that are talking about doing 5 scholarships just because of the finances of it. They're a private school. They're not getting any money from the outside.
Right.
Boy, how difficult to compete with 5 scholarships when you have schools down the street giving 9.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be incredibly difficult. But again, this is where we hope, Ryan, that a PDI score comes into play where they're recruiting players and they're finding players that are not demanding X amount of dollars to come to their school, which I think there's a little bit of that's going on right now. It's going to go on, and I think you alluded to that with the NIL stuff, right? One of the things I think is very interesting, which he said, and we've talked about a lot, is it's going to be, it's demanding for the coach to win. They have to win. They have to compete. Their school has to, put their best face out there, if you will. So making those selections really going to matter now versus, I can take a chance. I have a roster of 13 players. I'm going to have 3 or 4 that, I've got a walk-on spot. I have a this spot, right? It's the, leap of faith spot. We are, I'd say the PDI and our team are betting on the fact that if you use PDI, you're going to find those best players out there, and you're not taking that chance anymore. Right. You're not taking a leap of faith. You really actually are understanding what's under the hood of that, hopefully that Maserati that people just see as a Volkswagen sometimes.
Well, the beautiful part, and you mentioned it on this week's podcast, is we are no longer years, we're no longer months, we're no longer weeks. We are days away from PDI becoming a household name in college golf. What's going to happen in Las Vegas is going to be transcendent, and it will trickle down to the 8-9-year-olds in junior golf. That is what is going to happen. That Rome wasn't built in a day, but that is, if you listen to our podcast, you've heard about PDI now for over a year, and you probably haven't heard a ton about it else off of this podcast. Obviously, you and I are we are the outlet that discusses PDI probably exclusively right now. Right. I mean, it's just, obviously. But my point to that is we have families that listen to every podcast that have heard PDI, and they're waiting. Okay, I've heard about it. Now let's see it. Well, you're going to start to see it. You could even see Coach Byrd that they've been searching for a way to try to predict grit. It's the hardest thing in the world to predict. You don't want to pat yourself on the back. I will. You did crack the code, Roger. And those kind of analytics that absolutely determine a player whose goal and final destination was to get the college scholarship and shut it down, compared to the kid that gets the college scholarship and that is the start of their journey. And by the way, that is the biggest. Coach didn't say it. Maybe I didn't ask the question great, but that is who makes it and who doesn't in college golf.
Right.
That's why so many college coaches say what they want to hear. And this is from schools that have never had a PGA Tour player, right? We have colleges that have never once had a player get to the PGA Tour, and the coach says, we want to hear the kids say they want to play the PGA Tour. Yeah. The odds aren't in their favor, but what that mental note is if you're going to school and your goal is in another area, not that we're discouraging that. This is not, academics and a degree are huge, but what the college coaches are telling you is when the kid has the plan B, and they go out on the golf course and they get their head beat in like most do because it's golf, it's easy to doubt yourself and say, you know what, I need to focus more on the plan B. When the kid is only plan A and there is no plan B, they tend to figure it out a little bit better.
No doubt. Actually, that's a great book, Ryan, by the way, that's out there. Bo Eason has written, there is no plan, B for plan A, right? I mean, right. That is very hard. But again, it all depends on when you start on working on plan A, right? And are you working effectively towards that plan A and knowing, what you need to work on and why you need to work on it. So I love that.
And it's super tricky. It's super tricky because the odds of making it on the LPGA Tour and PGA Tour are so slim that any parent with a brain is going to have a plan B, C, and D. And that's the best thing for your kid.
Yeah.
It's just for the college coach that is judged on wins and losses, they're not super interested in B, C, and D. They want you to figure out A.
yeah, no doubt. Well, Ryan, I have to say, and maybe this is just a character flaw on my part, but I maybe Michael will tell you, I don't really look at there's no plan B, there's no plan C or D. My kids, I want my kids to follow their dreams and go after it as hard as they possibly can.
Yeah.
I say that to our kids at the academy as well. And I'd say that to their parents, right? Listen, you're chasing a dream, which is even playing in college is such a small number of kids get that opportunity, you have to be fully committed to being your best of what you're trying to accomplish in golf academically. And obviously being the best person you can be is super important, because nobody would want to be around you if you're not, right? But the reality is, it is just difficult, and the world that we live in is difficult. And now you can go chase plan A with a plan B, that I'm going to be a CEO or I'm going to be an accountant someday, and that doesn't pan out as well as most people think either, right? So why not pursue the plan A with your best intentions and with your best efforts, right? Because you'll be happier, you know?
Well, a great point, per normal. Super exciting. Next week, Roger, we will be doing the podcast from Las Vegas, from the College Coaches Convention. We've got some great guests planned from Las Vegas. Nota Begay will be there. Your entire PDI staff will be there. You and I will be there. So looking forward to that, and really what will be putting our flag in the dirt, so to speak, and the start of changing this game for a long time. So can't wait to get to Las Vegas. Safe travels to you. Podcast next week coming from Las Vegas, Roger. That's exciting.
Absolutely exciting, Ryan. I just going to be careful. We better not put our flag in the ground there. We might get, attacked or something. I'm not sure. I saw a lot of that this past weekend.
Yeah. We'll just wave the flag and we'll come after it. That's going on. Right?
There you go.
Especially with college, but we got to be careful.
Yeah.
And, thank you to Coach Byrd for sure. Clemson, congratulations on building a great program that he's done since taking over. Exceptional. Once again, we will be in Las Vegas next week at the College Coaches Convention, so certainly you want to tune in for that special episode. There's a lot of information. We have an opportunity to talk to women's college coaches from all over the country. And so for our director, producer, Michael Nick, for Roger Nick, I'm Ryan Byrd. We'll see you next week from Las Vegas on the hub of Junior Golf Podcast.